I have been crossing the Vrethian Dominion transit corridor for 11 years, and in all that time, the routine never changed. File the manifest. Present the convoy codes. Hold position at the Entry Meridian while their patrol vessels ran their scans. Receive clearance. Cross. It was the most boring 11 hours of any transit cycle, and I used to spend it on inventory reports and cooling system checks and arguments with our cargo broker over tonnage declarations. That was before the scan returned an error. My name is Petra Andal. I was systems engineer and second watch officer aboard the It's Viridian March, lead ship of the Crestfall convoy, 12 vessels total, 9 freighters and 3 escort frigates, carrying machine parts, agricultural seed stock, and water filtration assemblies for the Oran colonial settlements on the far side of Dominion space. I had made this run before. Every captain in our convoy had made this run before. We knew the Vrethian checkpoints, we knew their inspection protocols, we knew that their bioclassification arrays were thorough to the point of tedium, cataloging every organism aboard every ship before they would grant passage. It was a condition of the transit treaty. We filed our crew biometrics in advance. We submitted to secondary scans at the Entry Meridian. We waited. What we had never seen was a Vrethian patrol vessel go quiet mid-scan. I was at the secondary console when it happened. One of the escort frigates, its Forthright's twin, had been maintaining calm chatter with the Dominion Patrol's lead vessel, the Vrethian equivalent of polite conversation during a border inspection, acknowledgments and status pings, and the occasional formal request for a tonnage clarification. Then the chatter stopped. Not a calm drop, not interference. Just silence, the kind that has a quality to it, the kind that tells you someone on the other end is reading something they did not expect to read. Our captain, Sevar Malin, was on the bridge. He did not say anything. He stood at the forward observation rail and watched the 3 Vrethian patrol vessels through the viewport, and I watched him, and neither of us reached for the comms because there are moments when the right move is to be very still and wait to understand what is happening before you do anything that cannot be undone. The Vrethian bioclassification arrays are organic instruments. I had read the technical summaries, back when I first qualified for Dominion Transit certification, what a human biologist might call living spectrometers, grown from the Dominion's own genetic stock, refined over generations to identify every known spacefaring species by its chemical signature, its cellular pattern, its electromagnetic profile. The Dominion had been crossing paths with other civilizations for 4 centuries. They had files on everything. Their arrays did not return errors. Ours returned 3. The first I understood later, when a Dominion technical liaison tried to explain it to Captain Malin in the debriefing. The array had identified us correctly as biological organisms, carbon-based, oxygen metabolizing, bilaterally symmetrical, standard reading. Then it had attempted to subclassify, and here was where the instrument began to report things that did not cohere. 41 crew aboard the Viridian March. The array had attempted to file all 41 under a single species designation, which is standard practice: 1 species, 1 file, 1 entry in the Dominion's registry of known civilizations. But the 41 crew of the Viridian March carried 41 different genetic signatures that the array's taxonomic model read as separate adaptive branches, not the micro-variation you find within any species. Differentiation on a scale the instrument was calibrated to treat as speciation. We were not 41 instances of one thing. We were, to the array, 41 things that happened to live in the same ship and speak the same language. The second error followed from the first. The array, unable to file us under a single entry, attempted to cross-reference our profile against every registered civilization in the Dominion's taxonomy. It found partial matches. Not full matches, partial ones, across dozens of entries. We resembled, in different measurements, different species at different points in their evolutionary record, as if the array were reading the history of half the galaxy's biology compressed into one crew manifest. The third error I understood best because it was the simplest. The array had attempted to determine our threat classification, a standard step in the Dominion's inspection protocol, applied to every species, filed automatically. The classification rubric asked, is this species at a pre-spacefaring stage, an early spacefaring stage, a mid-tier established stage, or an apex-tier stage? The array had returned all four simultaneously. We had crew aboard who, by the Dominion's metrics, registered as pre-spacefaring in their individual adaptive profile, people whose bodies carried the marks of a species that had not yet left its gravity well. And we had crew who registered as something the array had no category for, something beyond the apex tier, something that made the instrument report a fourth error nested inside the third. It was at this point that the Vrethian patrol went silent and called for the Armada. I did not know any of this during the 40 minutes we spent waiting. I knew only that 3 patrol vessels had stopped talking to us, and that something was happening on frequencies our sensors could detect but not decode, the tight band transmissions of the Dominion military net, compressed and encrypted, carrying what I later learned was a request for classification assistance, escalated twice, then authorized as a full assembly call. I ran a quiet systems check. I confirmed our defensive arrays were on standby, not raised. I told my junior watch officer to stay at his post and to do exactly what I told him and nothing else. Captain Mullen never raised the shields. He stood at the forward rail and he waited, and when the first elements of the Vrethian fleet began arriving at the Entry Meridian, not patrol vessels, fleet vessels, the kind that carry weapons we would not have enjoyed meeting, he did not move. He made one announcement over the convoy-wide channel in a voice I have tried to remember with precision ever since. All convoy vessels hold position, maintain current heading, do not alter power signatures. We are in compliance with our transit permits. We are going to wait. There were 31 Vrethian fleet vessels at the Entry Meridian by the time the assembly was complete. I counted them because counting helped me think. 31 vessels against 12, 3 of which were frigates whose firepower I respected without illusion. If it came to an exchange, we would not survive long enough for it to matter. I knew that. Every member of our crew knew that. And so we did what humans do when there is nothing else available. We waited, and we held, and we did not give them anything to read except the thing we already were. The Dominion spent 2 hours scanning us. What I understand now and did not understand then is that the Dominion's bioclassification system is the foundation of their entire diplomatic and military architecture. Everything the Dominion does at a border, every treaty, every transit protocol, every threat assessment, every alliance structure begins with the question of what a species is. Not what it does. What it is. Fixed, stable, classifiable. The assumption, built into 4 centuries of practice, is that a species is a thing with edges. You can measure it, file it, predict it within acceptable parameters. You know what it is today because it is the same thing it was a decade ago and will be a decade from now. We were not that. We were a species that had been, in its own recorded history, hunter-gatherers and priests and engineers and soldiers and farmers and artists and conquerors and diplomats, sometimes all at once, sometimes in rapid succession, sometimes the same individual cycling through several of those in a single lifetime. We were a species that had taken our own genetic heritage and begun, carefully and controversially, and with enormous argument among ourselves, adjusting it, not enough to split us, but enough to make the edges blur. We were a species that had crossed our own internal cultural distances so many times that 41 crew aboard a single freighter could carry 41 different histories, 41 different adaptive profiles, 41 different relationships to what we were, and still agree on enough to fly together and work together, and, when necessary, hold position together against 31 fleet vessels, while a civilization 4 centuries deep in the business of knowing what everything was tried to figure out what we were. They could not. The Armada stood down at hour 3. Not a withdrawal, they remained at the Entry Meridian, but their weapons arrays went to passive. Their bioclassification vessels transmitted a single formal packet to our comms, which our translator engine rendered as classification pending, transit authorized under provisional registry, species designation to be assigned upon further study. We never received a designation. I checked, years later. The Dominion's registry still carries us as a provisional entry, no assigned code, no tier classification, the fields that every other species in their system has filled with neat, stable numbers left blank for humanity. Captain Mullen gave the order to resume transit. The convoy crossed, no shot fired, no shield raised. I finished my cooling system check somewhere in the middle of Dominion space, with 31 fleet vessels behind us and the orange settlements ahead, and I thought about what the array had tried to file us as and couldn't, and I thought about the 41 people on this ship who were all, technically, different answers to the same question, and I thought about the fact that we had never decided to be an aberration. We had just kept becoming things, and we had not stopped yet. I do not know what the Dominion eventually wrote in that blank field. I know what I would have written. Insufficient data. Subject continues to change.